Good evening or afternoon or morning or whatever the time happens to be in your part of the world. We're just here to kind of shoot the breeze and talk about religion and belief and I guess the community in general. Um, so, just to kind of start the conversation off, I was wondering to hear any of your opinions about tone in conversations and things. I've noticed lately there have been a lot of discussions in some of the chat rooms and hangouts, and to me, when it becomes just filled with vitriol and things, I don't think it's very productive. And it's a lot of times it seems like each side will kind of declare themselves to have the high ground in the conversation, and then people end up either quitting or getting booted and things. Do you think that anything good comes of those kinds of conversations?
I do.
I'll respond if you want. So sorry.
It shows what kind of people it shows what kind of person somebody is if they're doing that. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as someone's being civil, you should have the courage to have your beliefs challenged. When you kick people or start attacking them personally or stuff like that, you're just showing your insecurity and you're not confident in your views. Everyone should offer each other intellectual charity and also have intellectual honesty with yourself. And ask yourself, are you in search of the truth, no matter what the truth is, or are you just trying to protect what you think is the truth and just guard it? I think you should try to be as honest with yourself as possible and accept the truth, no matter what it is.
So, on the flip side of running from people, one of the other issues that I have with some of the YouTube personalities is just the hubris and things. Forbidden Fruit is someone who I think is somewhat new to the YouTube. He's mostly a content producer. I don't know that he's been involved with Hangouts per se, but just he just seems so arrogant to me, and to me it's a turn off. And I know that if I was a believer, thinking back to when I was a believer, hearing him would have just played into my own narrative about what it would mean to not have Jesus in your life, and while that's not necessarily the best logic, I fear that when believers see or hear, and I'm sure it's true of the other side too, people who are super arrogant and you have people like Brett Keane and Pillbox and things, who tend not to even. It doesn't seem like they even listen to what you're saying, and they jump on you. I'm put off by that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on kind of the arrogance and lack of humility in some cases?
Well, the thing is with Forbidden Fruit that I've noticed as a believer is that he's very. He seems very militaristic, and I use that in the negative sense, in that he's very Richard Dawkins-esque in his approach, in that, to be honest with you, the people he's going to attract are people who already believe this. And the thing is that, to me, it's not really going to change my mind because, frankly, I used to hang out with that sort of people when I was an atheist. So basically, you're reinforcing whatever negative stereotype I may have already. Well, it's not a negative stereotype of atheists in general. It's just of a certain type of atheist who has to attack religion to be in a position that they can defend. You know, it's not a position based on rationality or reason or education or any of that. It's based upon their anger and their incredulity, sort of. And I think that people like that. Now, I would turn the question around to you, and I would ask this: do Rand Campbell, Raw, and people like that, G-Man, do they bring you closer to believing? And if not, do they turn you away from believing? I would answer. I would argue that they don't, because what they do is that they turn away from their particular approach. As Forbidden Fruit turns me away from his particular approach. Doesn't mean I'm not open to other sides of arguments. I just know that he's not somebody who is going to convert me with his particular view on things.
I mean, I would say Raw is just because he's tends to be gentle. His demeanor is more appealing to me than Rand Campbell or G-Man. And G-Man is not very interesting to me, other than kind of a tennis ball kind of guy to bat around with just for the fun of it. And I think he does more good for our side, the atheists, than he does for any than he does for any of the believers. Fortunately or unfortunately, as it may be.
But I would argue that people like the Cult of Dusty and Raw and to some extent, and I know you may disagree with this, but Aaron Ra does a lot of damage. Because the thing is that he made a lot about science, but he doesn't know a lot about theology. And the thing is that he'll take a quote from the church father, which he obviously hasn't read, and then he'll quote it, and then it'll like be facepalm with it to people who actually have read it. Like, I've actually read most of the stuff he quotes from the early church fathers. I know that he's got it wrong because I actually have read the whole thing. Now the thing is that I don't mind somebody quoting something. I do mind when it is quoted out of context and misappropriated to use in a negative sense when that isn't the entire gist of the conversation. It'd be like me. It's like the way that creationists do with Charles Darwin to make him out to be a racist. They'll take one sentence he says and say, "Oh, well, look here, he's a racist," instead of dealing with what he actually said in those sentences. That's my problem.
I mean,
dishonesty.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that. I mean, Aaron Ra gets so riled up in some hangouts, and even when he's just presenting, he will say things. And I'm by no means an expert on theology or on some of the other world religions that he will cite things from, but he will say things in a lot of cases that I don't hear from any other sources, which makes me kind of lift an eyebrow at the very least. And he says it with such confidence, and he gets a lot of the times he's got a majority atheist audience that's, I think, not skeptical enough about some of the claims that he makes, and that to me is somewhat worrisome. He will cite things from, but he will say things in a lot of cases that I don't hear from any other sources, which makes me kind of lift an eyebrow at the very least. And he says it with such.
Whoa, that's massive feedback.
Yeah, Jim Panda, you got to stop the feed. Welcome to the group, by the way.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to say? Or?
Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, we got feedback from you.
No.
So.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think it was playing from like your YouTube feed or something like that. We were getting the audio feedback through it.
I've got one thing to say on what Gary said, I tend to think that when it comes to a philosophical side of things, that there's generally a lot more confusion as a whole in regards to that, other than when it comes to explaining a scientific area. And I think that is a massive aspect when it comes to Aaron Ra. He comes across as very arrogant, but that's because he generally he has a large support as well. He generally doesn't have to deal with a philosophical side so much, and most people are not aware of it. Hence, blah 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 blah, and blah blah blah. I'm just babbling here. Somebody else fucking talk, for God's sake.
No, I agree with you, and I think to me, I worry that Aaron Ra has kind of lost some integrity in his zeal for advancing the cause he believes in.
Side chat. Gary is polite even though he is a Christian. What the fuck?
Gary is polite. It's always a pleasure to have Gary
Yes,
in
he is.
our Hangouts. Tommy Hall, do you want to contribute anything here? You got anything on your mind?
Uh-oh. Sorry, that's assumption on my part. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just enjoying the side chat myself. So, no, I'm just a long day, just seeing what's happening with you guys. I was just noticing. I would like to ask though. It seems to me like all the Christians that I come across on here are very polite, and so I think they're kind of getting a bad rap for.
Like Raw?
Yeah, he's very polite.
Is he?
Yeah.
He says he's going to rejoice in my burning in hell forever.
Well, I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know that. I'm not familiar with that quote, but as far as cutting people off, cussing them out, raising their voice, not letting them talk, talking over people. I mean, you don't have that too much within the Christian community. So I know there are exceptions, and some people have bad days. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but in general, I think we're all a pretty polite group. So if anything, there's good and bad on both sides, but if anything, it leans the other direction for sure on the atheist side. People who just won't let Christians talk. And
Are you quoting me, Tommy?
I don't know, not purposely. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, I never thought I'd hear those words from Tommy, personally.
Which words?
Good and bad on both sides.
Well, I'm talking about actions. I'm not talking about people. Or I'm not talking about, the person themselves. I'm just talking about, we all have our ups and downs, our good and bad days, and so I'm just saying there's people act correctly on both sides and act poorly on both sides. So there's no doubt about that. I have my days as well, believe it or not.
Can't argue that. Damn it, Tommy, say something obtuse. Is that the word? I think it's obtuse.
So
This is abnormal.
Let me take this in a different direction then. So, what do you think is the most compelling argument on the other side? And I'll go first. To me, I think probably intelligent design makes the most sense to me as far as arguments for kind of deism, I suppose. I don't think for myself that argument gets anywhere near to Christianity. I think there's a huge chasm. If you grant a designer to make make the leap to Christianity. But that's the thing that probably I find most compelling, coming from the other side. But I think there are problems with that. I don't, obviously, I haven't been fully convinced by it. But
Can I ask you a question?
so,
'Cause
yeah.
I hear that a lot, a whole lot from y'all's side, or not, I don't know what side you're on exactly, but from the other side that, okay, well, just because the our existence looks designed, how does that lead to Christianity? And it's almost like it almost discounts. It's like, well, I'm going to be an atheist because what we see around us may look designed, but it doesn't prove young Earth creationism, doesn't prove Christianity, doesn't prove Christ died on the cross, but so my question is, what would you need to see? I mean, I don't think nature. I kind of agree. I mean, it doesn't necessarily lead someone to being a Christian, but I guess if you need to see that, what would you need to see in nature to be convinced of that?
Well, for Christianity, we need support for the claims that the Bible makes.
Well, that's a different issue, though, as opposed to looking at the universe, looking at, cells and galaxies and everything around us. I mean, that's a whole different topic. But yet, I hear that a lot. It's like, well, okay, I mean, just because the universe may look designed, how does that lead us to a personal God? I just think it's a non sequitur.
Well, if you're saying if we accept intelligent design, okay, we're at a deist God now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll grant a deist God. So that's kind of like a personal God, and at that point we need evidence for a specific God, and in this case the Bible God, Yahweh. It's not any other God. It's not any other creator God. It's this one specific God, and the only thing we can go by is what claims that are attributed to that God. So we have to look at the Bible. So we have to look for evidence that the claims made in the Bible are correct. Imagine someone asks you, do you believe in if George Washington existed? And I think everyone would say, yeah, George Washington existed. Well, I said, no. Do you believe in George Washington? He was the 10th president of the United States, who was killed by John Wilkes Booth from the grassy knoll.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in that sort of George Washington? And you would say, of course not. You have your history, you have your facts confused. You believe in the George Washington, who was the first president of the United States, who was the general that led the Revolutionary War and so forth. So, if you say, okay, do you believe in a creator God? Well, okay, and this God created the world 6,000 years ago and produced a global flood 4,300 years ago, and performed all these miracles and so forth, and that's the issue.
Well, and see, here's where I guess I kind of hesitate, because my own personal experience was one that when I repented the very first time, I didn't need to do an investigation on the legitimacy of Christ. I didn't need to go research archaeology. I didn't do any of that. In fact, I didn't even hardly. I didn't even have hardly any Bible reading under my belt. I'd gone to church and I had read the Bible on and off over the years, so I had a bit of a foundation. But there was I did not have to go investigate this in order to be convinced. I was convinced at the moment of repentance, and so that's where I started with my relationship with the Lord, when I bowed down to Him and repented really a lifetime of sins. So I think that's, if anybody's really searching for the truth, I think that's where it starts.
So if I had to guess, I'd say that you were convinced before you repented, because if you didn't believe, you wouldn't repent. Is it fair to say that, would you say, Tommy?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would just say that I guess I was just in a position where I was like, Lord, I do not know the answers. And really, the very first time, it was more of, it's like, I don't even know for sure if you're true, Lord, but if you are true, I want you to reveal yourself to me. And, I repent of my sins, and I want you to come into my life, to fill my heart, and I want to follow you. And, it was from that point on that it's just so true. When you do that, your whole, or at least mine, my whole outlook changed, and the way I saw the world changed, and the way I saw myself changed, and the way I interacted with people changed. And so that was really the beginning of everything. And so all I did, to answer your question, I don't know if it does or not, but I guess I just gave the Lord a small little crevice or crease of which he could come into my heart, and that's all he needed, and that's all I guess needed to be there. And so I don't know if that answers the question or not.
The problem I have with that is that, it sounds like you've accepted Christianity as a package deal. You could admit, I'm a sinner, I need forgiveness, I need to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so forth, but you accepted all this, this whole entire package deal, by doing that. And it seems like you have to evaluate, that, one by one. By doing that, you accept the doctrine of the Trinity, the Protestant idea of faith and grace.
I didn't come across. No, I hadn't gone through any of that. At that moment, here's the thing. When I guess I started investigating the whole creation, evolution, atheism, that whole thing first, and I came across some things that really sort of opened my eyes to the world around me. And there was just a day when it was like, man, this existence that I'm living is not the result of chance. I'm here for a reason. I feel like I have a purpose. I feel loved. And I feel like this is a miraculous existence. And so that's what kind of springboarded it. So it was not that I instantly knew everything about what I believed as soon as I repented. I just knew I was saved and that I was loved. So it was only after that I kind of, started really sort of diving into it. And it was more, it was
other religions.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to ask, did you look into other religions as well?
No. In fact, I wasn't really looking. I mean, I was looking for the truth. But no, I didn't look into Muslim.
Well, did you like read the Quran? Did you read?
No.
Did you read like what's the? I'm trying to remember the name of the Hindu holy book. Is it the Bhagavad Gita and stuff like that?
Yeah.
The Buddhist holy book and stuff like that.
No, but as far as I know, Christ is the only one who claimed to be deity, claimed to be God, and so I investigated, or not really investigated, just I just is that not true? I mean, who else has claimed to be the living God?
I have.
Besides you.
Yeah, but there's a lot of religions that have demigods and sons of gods, and things like that. I don't think Jesus didn't write anything. We just have stories written about him. So I don't see how you can set Jesus apart from any other religion. I mean, why not go with Dionysus or Apollonius of Tyana or or anything like that?
Apollonius of Tyana. Gee whiz, I don't even know where to start. You do know that Apollonius of Tyana was taken from Christ, right?
What's that?
Apollonius of Tyana was taken from Christ. The stuff that was written about it to be like Christ was taken and put on in mindset.
No,
the New Testament.
Christians apologists will say that, but I don't.
No, it's the truth. It's what happened.
I don't think so.
No, it is the truth. Because, again, it has nothing to do with Christianity and atheism.
I am the truth.
I mean, a lot of stuff that went in the Gospels was taken for other things. I mean, let's look at
There
the
was a
the Logos and the John Gospel. I mean, that was taken from Philo, who got it from Greek philosophy. So, I mean, there's a lot of borrowing here and there everywhere.
Philo of Alexandria. What about him?
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, like, what about Philo? Yeah, he was a Greek, and yeah, he would have got philosophy from the Greeks. So what?
Well, I mean, the whole concept of the Logos is pretty much all from Philo. I mean, the John Gospel just pretty much copies him, verbatim.
He just used his Greek learning and attributed it to and applied it to Christianity. That's all that happened. There was nothing deceptive about it.
Well, I'm not saying deceptive. I'm just saying that the parallels are so similar. When Philo came first, you can't help but see that John Gospel got it from Philo. I posted on the side chat there. Just compare.
Yeah,
So,
but you understand that John came before Philo, right?
What's that?
John came before Philo was even born.
You gotta be kidding me. The John Gospel was probably written late 2nd century. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It was written late 1st century. It was written like before 100 AD.
Well,
Philo. I mean, Philo was around during the time of Christ. So no, Philo was before the Gospels were written.
No, he was just about. I think he was born. But the dates for birth there were a bit dicey, so possibly I'll grant you he possibly could be, but.
I mean, Philo could have actually been a contemporary of Jesus. Yeah, Philo was born 25 BCE and died 50 CE.
Yeah, well, that's after Jesus was dead. No, what? That's after Jesus was born. I mean, so yeah, he could have been. Again, I'm not discounting. I'm just saying that.
So if the John Gospel was, I'll even give you that it was written around 90 CE. I don't believe that. I believe John Gospel was written later than that. But if it was written around 90, that's still after Philo.
Okay, I mean, but I don't think that you can see that John took it for it. I mean, as I said, John was a Greek-speaking Jew who just wrote things down as he saw them. Again, it's possible that Philo's work could have influenced him, as Shakespeare's words influence every day. I mean, we probably use Shakespeare without even knowing we're doing it. I mean, if you've ever been tongue-tied or in a pickle or any of this stuff, you quote Shakespeare, you probably just don't know it.
Well, the very earliest church fathers claimed that the John Gospel was written by a Gnostic named Cerinthus. And then critical scholars believe that gospel was taken and then redacted by the ecclesiastic redactor, potentially Philo. I mean, I'm sorry, not Philo, Polycarp, which we have today's John Gospel. So,
well, let me ask you: I'm not making light of this by saying this, but are these the best quotes that you have to back up your case that John took his material from Philo? I'm just asking, is there much more, or is this just a small segment, or are these the best quotes that you were referring to? Because they're kind of lightweight sort of things, and quite honestly, like reading through some of them, even if he did borrow them, I mean, the ideas, I don't really see too much of a problem with that. With what I'm reading.
Yeah, but Philo, he wrote about the concept of the Logos. He talked about it being the Son of God. He talked about the Paraclete, about the mediator between God and man, and so forth. All this perfectly matches, Christ. So, I mean, I think it's strong evidence. But you can just say Philo was inspired by God, and Jesus was a personification of what Philo talked about. So it's not necessarily a problem for Christianity with that respect either. I'm just pointing out that there's nothing too unique about Christianity.
I wonder why someone from that time didn't come out and accuse John of being a fraud, of being a plagiarist, copying ideas. Why that didn't come out?
But
It's not really.
All he needed to be was like slightly important.
I mean, it's not really plagiarizing, so to speak. It is.
Well, the ideas though, the thoughts or the concepts.
Well, I mean, the ideas were all over the place. I mean, you want to accuse the New Testament writers for plagiarizing the Old Testament for Jesus' prophecies, for example. The New Testament writers are saying, Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because there are people who don't believe who accuse the New Testament writers, Tommy, of plagiarizing the Old Testament to get the prophecies to line up. Now, I personally don't believe that, but some people do.
Well, I don't think plagiarize is the right word, but
No. What I mean is that they wrote things to appear that it fulfilled prophecies. That's all. That's all I'm saying. That's what most reasonable non-believers will point
yeah. Well,
to.
I mean, they certainly turned to the Old Testament to make claims about Jesus. I mean, it's just read the Matthew Gospel. It says over and over again, Jesus fulfilled this prophecy in this one, and a lot of the verses aren't even really meant to be prophecies, but the the New Testament writers found esoteric meaning in the Old Testament, just like the Jews of the time were doing. I mean, the Pesher exegesis that was taking place there was being done by a lot of the groups at the time. I mean, just look at the Dead Sea Scrolls writings, for example.
So Gary, I'm just kind of curious what's your position on, I know you are an evolutionist, but are you a Christian? You said you were an atheist but now believe in God. What is your position?
I'm a Quaker.
A Quaker?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you maybe fill in some more blanks?
William Penn, look him up. No, William Penn was behind a religion that is pacifist and tried to go along with a more pacifist strain of Christianity to go along with, like the pacifist people of old that the church had got away from. People like St. Francis of Assisi and people like that who were all about peace and spreading the gospel that way, rather than through the sword. Now, that is the Quaker in a nutshell. We believe in the Trinity, we believe in... Most of us believe in the universalist mindset. Evolution isn't a problem because, again, evolution is just the mechanism God used to create the world we see around us. And I don't see any contradiction to think otherwise.
Yeah, I understand. I was just curious. So you would say that you're a Christian? Or you are a Christian? Yes. You are, okay.
Yes. But I also accept that evolution happens.
Okay. I just didn't know what your position on the big picture was.
I'm just curious, Tommy, why you don't think that evolution happens when there's plenty of evidence to say it does.
Well, is that something we want to get into?
No, I'm just asking the question.
Personally, I think there's a major flaw with the mechanism.
But
I don't think the mechanism that the neo-Darwinist mechanism is a functional, legitimate mechanism. I don't believe it operates. I think biology. There's nothing about biology that's chance-based throughout your whole body. Think about all the processes in your body. Can you think of something that happens haphazardly? That's what the foundation of Darwinism is, or neo-Darwinism, is that your cells, your genome, your genes are so dumb that they have no direction in the way that they change. And so I think that the past 100 years has shown. I mean, it's the science is showing more and more and more that all the biology, all the cell processes are under regulation, including DNA. And so kind of the past, really, since neo-Darwinism has started, the past 80, 90 years, whatever it is, since the 30s, 40s, it's really been kind of a con job to get people to not understand that and believe that DNA genes are just things that have an intellectual moat around them that disallows information or intelligence to guide their actions. And so that's my basic premise or basic reason, I guess, that I don't believe in evolution. I think that the whole foundation is just flawed.
Well, it's not by chance. It's not blind. It's guided by natural selection.
No, I'm talking about the genetic changes themselves are assumed to be chance-based under the neo-Darwinian paradigm.
Well, there's some mutation, but with every birth, the genes slightly change. You're slightly different than your parents.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the genome or the genes have changed by chance. Just
well, no one's saying by chance.
Well, okay,
there can be some mutation,
right?
And that can be random. But for the most part, yeah, you're just different than your parents. If there is a mutation, I mean, it could be severe enough where it's like cancer or something, and you'll simply die out. And if you die out quickly enough, you won't have time to breed. So those mutations are bad. If it's some mutations are totally do nothing, but it could be bad or advantageous based on what environment you're in. Like, let's say you have a gene change which makes you more hairy, for example. In cold climate, that might be beneficial, and the people who have the hairy gene now, survive and live on. But if that genetic mutation happened in a tropical thing where the hair could be very bad, and you could die from a heat stroke or something. So it has a lot to do with again, or it could be in the middle in that case where you're hairy and nothing happens. It's irrelevant.
See, here again, you're assuming that there's a random mutation that brings about hair. You assume that there's a random mutation or mutations that brought about the eye. That brought about the reproductive system, all the blood vessels in the body. You guys assume all this stuff arose by chance and got selected. And so I'm just saying there's no evidence out there that any body part can arise by mutation, much less by chance mutation. And nobody can show otherwise. So there's no reason to believe it.
No, I think we have a fossil record to show.
That does not show that any body part, any particular feature arose by random mutation. It shows that there's differences in animals, but
Tommy.
Yeah, but there are different strata. I mean, there are different layers. So you can say, okay, so that gives you a time period, and then you follow the fossil records that through the time period. You see the evolution of these features.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hang on. But, go ahead.
There is a big difference between, we start off from what we see, what we know, what's around us. I say we, they, when it involves science and so on. That's a big difference between something that's supernatural and there's no evidence for. So the assumption is based on something that we can generally all agree on. That's how evolution came about. It was based on things that we could all agree that were there and existed, and it's progressed and moved on. I mean,
here's the problem:
when it comes to other things, it just gets other suggestions. That's the difference between someone making a statement about religion and someone making a statement about evolution.
But the way animals change is not the way that neo-Darwinists assume. Like, for example, how you could just I could show you example after example of when science moves an organism or a group of organisms to a new environment, and they change really quickly, as in maybe 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5 generations. It's not this waiting millions of years for this random mutation to pop up and then spread nonsense. This is a fairy tale that in no way, shape, or form has ever been shown to happen. It happens quickly and within individuals as they interact with the environment. So it's the Darwinism whole scheme is screwed both by the evidence of what actually happens when we move animals to new environments, that it happens quickly, and it's also screwed by the fact that it's never been shown to happen their way.
But how is it comparable? How is it, even if that's what you believe, how is it comparable to, say, your religious beliefs in creationism and so on?
Look, it
How is
goes
it even comparable when that's
look.
based on a supernatural thing where there is actually nothing to base the whole issue on?
Look, there's no.
That was God kind of thing.
We
It doesn't
are.
make sense.
Listen, we are in the same boat. I don't have a miraculous or supernatural explanation for it.
But it's not the same boat.
Let me finish. I don't have a supernatural explanation for a kidney or a whole body, and you don't likewise have a chance plus selection explanation for a kidney or anything else in the body. We're in the same exact boat. You have no mutation you could point to that creates a body part or even a part of a body part. So we, as far as origins goes, we are in the exact same boat. The only difference is I have the evidence that animals change non-randomly as a result of an interaction with the environment. You do not have evidence that they change by way of random mutation, natural selection. So if anything, the evidence points really only to me and nothing on your side.
So, can you offer some evidence? You're saying you take a polar bear and you put them in the Sahara Desert, it'll change? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I would say if you stick a polar bear, I mean, of course, a bear in a desert, polar bear, that's quite a shock. But if you move a polar bear, let it breed, live and breed for a few generations in, we'll say, Alabama, sure enough, I'd be willing to bet within a few generations, those cubs, as they grow up and have more babies, would probably, their fur would probably start changing. In fact, I think we've seen some of that a little bit. But here's the thing. Oddly, it seems like the larger the animal, the slower they are to change. So in other words, like a flea or a fly or some small animals, they have a tendency to change really rapidly with the change of environment. So a polar bear is kind of a bad example. But if you take, we'll say, dogs or something smaller, even mice, they can change their coat colors relatively quickly, and other features as well.
Well, I like to see the scientific studies for what you're claiming.
It's all over the place. I mean, have you heard of phenotypic plasticity and epigenetics?
Right, but Tommy, so the one of the points is when you have these changes among multiple generations and things, you not only get the changes that are sustained. So let's say you have polar bears changing over multiple generations, and because they're in an environment where it is beneficial for them to have darker fur, they end up having darker fur. You are not beneficial that get weeded out of the gene pool because they're not beneficial. So, the reasons like why we have people who are born with, extra limbs. We have people that have other mutations and things that are not beneficial. But we also have people who are born with beneficial mutations, like extremely dense bones that are resistant to breakage. And there's a family, I think, in Italy somewhere that has no history of heart disease or heart attack or anything like that. And they have some gene mutation that has been beneficial and has been perpetuated through the generations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just directional. The changes are random, but the ones that are beneficial are perpetuated.
Well, you see, again, you're assuming the changes are random. There is no evidence of that.
Yes, I just gave you examples where there are random mutations that are not beneficial and other mutations that are beneficial.
Okay. So yes, there are some mutations that have negative effects, and there are mutations that have a benefit, and most even mutations that have a benefit will have some negative effects. But there is no evidence that these mutations are random, especially mutations that do indeed perform some sort of an adaptive have an adaptive function. You know, if you could make the case theoretically that a disease, you know, a mutation that creates some sort of a disease, maybe you know, you could make the case that could be random. But I just think biology is too smart, too intelligent. Life is too freaking amazing, complex, and just bewilderingly mind-blowing, miraculous to be making mistakes by the millions over and over and over.
Are you familiar with the sickle cell anemia problem in Africa?
Yep. Well, somewhat. I know a little bit.
Do you know why
But
sickle
there's
cell
no.
anemia persists
Yes.
in Africa?
But again, there's nothing new added there. I mean, that's a trait that. Yeah. But again, that's a bad example because there's nothing.
Can you
new
answer
with
the
those
question,
traits.
please, Tommy?
Yes, there's a variant that. Oh, let's see. It's been a long day. But it provides protection, I guess, or resistance. I'm not sure what the word is. Some people, if you have, I don't know. I guess I can't put it into words right now, but there's a difference between the sickle cell trait and the sickle cell disease.
Right.
You know, and so some people who have the sickle cell trait, you know, the sickle cell disease, I guess you can get the, you know, the pain and it's it's not a good deal. Whereas the trait, it has something to do with malaria, correct?
Yes, exactly. So,
Right.
so people who
Resistance to
have
malaria.
the trait are resistant to infection with malaria, so they
Correct.
persist. Now, so when they look at the populations, human populations in Africa, you can see based on who has sickle cell anemia. If you look at the map and plot out where sickle cell anemia is prevalent,
Mm-hmm.
it is prevalent in areas where malaria exists,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a mutation to the genes that causes this certain type of cell that's resistant to malaria. But when you have full blown expression of the genes, because you've got it from both parents, I guess, is the way it works. It's a hindrance and a problem, and
Right.
you
So
become weak and anemic.
right. So so just remind me. So if two people come together and have an offspring, and if they both, it's been a while since I've read it, but something like if they both have the trait, but their offspring will come out with the disease. Is that correct?
In a simplistic way, I don't know exactly how the genetics work out or whatever, but yeah, we could say for simple discussion, if there are, let's say there are two genes that contribute to the type of sickle cell anemia, and if parents are carrier of one and not the other,
Mm-hmm.
then they have the resistance kind of manifestation of the sickle cell.
Right. Well, here's the
Malaria
thing.
resistant, but
May
if
I
they have
may I
both,
ask a question?
Yes. Hey, Rick.
I've been sitting here being very patient for 50
Yeah.
minutes. The question is actually directed to you, Tommy. And by the way, love your videos, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. I'm a part of your
thank you.
fan club, right?
Appreciate
The
you.
question for you is this:
Uh-huh.
whether they state that a system of reproduction is set up from one particular organism or involving two for reproduction, wouldn't that technically mean that the system would already have to be set up from the get-go in order for said species to survive?
Are you referring to the sickle cell, or are you referring to something else?
Well,
Just-
I'm asking you basically, if this isn't too off topic, wouldn't a system already have to be set in place for reproduction or replication in order for said species to exist?
Um, well, I would say so. Is it a trick question?
No, well,
Okay.
they claim that somehow some evolutionists out there claim that somehow it just magically had the mechanism mutate later, but that's impossible because if it can't replicate itself and have the mechanism set in place from the get-go, the organism simply dies because it can't reproduce itself. So the system has to be set into place.
Yeah, I mean that seems obvious. That's why I was asking if it was a trick question because I was just wondering if I was missing something. But yeah,
That's actually incorrect. That's differential breeding success.
Oh, so you're
So
saying that it doesn't need a reproduction system or a replicating mechanism?
that's also incorrect. What I'm saying is that the distinction in evolution is greater or lesser success in reproduction. So a trait that gives quote unquote greater fitness will result in greater number of offspring, so on.
Tommy, I see you scratching your nose over there. I hope that you're following me on this. Basically, what is being said here is that there is a magnificent system of function already set up from the get-go with no mutations, just the ability to replicate and reproduce itself. How can an evolutionist explain that already set up system to start producing?
You're begging the question.
yeah, I don't know.
You're
That's
Well,
yeah,
and
that's
see,
not what it's
it's
explained.
like that. It's like that all over nature. I mean, there's no evidence that it could happen. You know, if it wasn't already set up. I mean, if it was something on the way, a process on the way of being semi-functional, or there's no example or evidence that life is anything but fully functional. You know, that all those processes were there and operational at the same time.
That's exactly why I asked Tommy. He gets it immediately, but a lot of the other evolutionists, you just don't get it. You know?
So it's always good to ask people who agree with you the questions that you
Well,
think are defeating of
I
the
knew
argument,
Tommy
right?
would. I knew Tommy would because he's
Oh yeah.
intelligent, he's got rationality and logic. I knew it was a win-win situation for sure.
Excellent. Well, would you like to hear the response to the question that you asked from someone who doesn't agree with you and
Sure, go
thinks
ahead
that?
and explain to me how a species would survive without replicating mechanisms or reproduction. You go for it. Rock on.
Well, the replicating mechanism is just cell reproduction and also sexual reproduction. So that's your mechanism, and and the mechanism for the change is just imperfect replication and variation within the genes. So from one generation to the next, each time there's some variation, some deviation from the previous generation, and as the gene pool is exposed to environmental pressures and selection pressures, it shifts and changes, and sometimes splits off. So if you accept the fact that each generation is slightly different than the previous generation, and if you accept the fact that speciation occurs so that different populations or populations can split and diverge from each other, that's all you need. And then you have that process continue and persist.
We're talking about the original simple organism that you guys like to talk about. It would already have to have the mechanism set in place. No mutations required, no batteries included. It's got to have the system set up or it doesn't get to survive. It's that simple.
Yeah,
well, not only that, it's got to be compatible with the opposite sex too. So you've got to have two. You got to have both sides fully operational and ready to roll together at the same time. But it's not going to happen.
Well,
it's not going to happen.
That's beautiful, Tommy. Thank you.
Scientists have explanations for how sexual reproduction began. Asexual reproduction, I don't know, just just replication of protein chains is really all you need. We don't know exactly how that started. That's abiogenesis. But, from abiogenesis, whenever that happened, you have replication of these chains of proteins, and there was variation in the replication.
Mr. Run, you just said that you don't know the answer, nobody knows the answer, but then you go on to try to answer it. You got to make up your mind.
No, I've said I don't know. We don't know how it starts. That's different than saying.
Hey, Ron, you don't know how any of it happens. You have. Let me make it real clear. You have no mutation, no known molecular explanation for the arrival of any system of reproduction, anything that is involved in any of it. You have no scientific explanation for how it got here. So anything that you say is just pure speculation.
You plug your ears.
No, show me. We're talking about how something could function when it's on the way to being, compatible with, with the
that's
opposite
not how it
sex.
works.
Well, I know
it's not on the way to being
that
compatible.
way. That's Brett's point. It wouldn't work. Yet that's what your theory is.
So
it's a theory of slow changes over time. So
it's asexual reproduction first, right? It's just cells splitting, single cells splitting. Mm-hmm. And then eventually these cells can exchange information with each other. There is no gender at this point, or sex. And then eventually different species have their own two sexes.
You guys talk about it.
It just happens.
You guys talk about it like it's ping pong for Atari.
Yeah.
You're talking about a fully functional library of encyclopedia information already set in place.
No, it doesn't happen.
It's not set in place. That's wrong.
Well, that's what Richard Dawkins said. I'm just going along with what he said.
No, he never said all kinds start out where they are now.
He said that the information, there's so much information there, it's like a library of encyclopedias. That is what he said.
Now, but that's been formed over
place for replication and reproduction.
Quote mining, Brett.
Yeah, you just don't understand what he's saying. That came about over millions of years of evolution. We started from single-cell organisms, and then it gradually became more and more complex over millions of years. He's not saying that this thing has popped into existence. That's what you guys are saying. You guys are saying that everything that exists now just popped into existence.
No, that's your theory too. Except you believe in trillions of little random accidental miracles. It's still just as much popping into existence as ours is. Yours did it by dumb luck.
No, each generation changes. No. And there's environmental pressures along the way.
And with each generation, you have successes and failures on a large scale.
I'm talking about where it came from. I'm talking about the source, the raw material itself. I'm not talking about selection. I'm talking about where it came from. You believe all the body parts came about by random mutation. That is essentially the same as popping it into existence from nothing, just as it's just as miraculous as the Christian explanation.
No, nothing's popping. It's a gradual.
No, it's not. There's no assertion there.
Yeah, you just don't get it. You just don't understand.
No, I get it. If you're going to have part of the
if you're saying those things,
just pop into existence.
If you're going to have a non-eye and then you're going to have a new part of a new eye pop into existence.
But that's not how it formed. Did you ever read the articles of how the eye formed?
Well, show me a mutation
it started out as a few photosensitive
light-sensitive
cells.
patch. Yes. Where did the light-sensitive patch come from?
Well, from a very simple mechanism of it.
But it popped into existence by way of mutation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you have a very simple thing, but a fully developed eye never pops into existence.
Yeah,
right?
But you have a cornea.
It started out with a small photosensitive patch, right?
Yeah, and then you added a cornea or a pupil or part of one or a lens or macula.
Over millions of years.
But the point is, all these little parts had to come into existence by way of mutation. Mutation had to add something small. I'm just saying these small things that were added were just for dumb, pointless, purposeless, no reason, little tiny miracles, little slivers of little miracles.
Again, each generation changes a little bit.
Yeah, the changes.
The changes that remain that are successful within the environment carry on to the next generation.
Well, when you can show me one of those, I'd love to see it. You've got the whole biosphere to account for.
Well, that's why we're 99.9% of all species have died out because it's just blind.
It would be so nice.
If there was an intelligent designer behind all this, it wouldn't be all these failures. But with the blind mechanism of evolution, yeah, you would have a lot of failures, and that's exactly what we see. We see 99.9 plus percent of all species wiped out.
Yeah, can you account for that? Can you account for that at all with your creationist?
Yeah, it's not a very intelligent design at all.
And most of those are because of catastrophes, of when floods or volcano eruptions or.
So the ones that could survive, they carry on. The problem is
do you want to get into the dating of these catastrophes and so on as well then now, Tommy?
I mean, there's been multiple catastrophes all over the world.
Yeah, when times are good, you have like the woolly mammoth with these huge long trunks and everything, and the saber-toothed tiger with its long fangs and so forth. When times are good, yeah, these wonderful changes help. Come about, and then when the environment changes, boom! These things that did well in their static environment can't survive the changes, and they all die out.
Have you seen the big, huge mass graves of woolly mammoths up in the? I think it's up in Alaska or the Arctic somewhere. But they just have these mountains of bones piled up of mammoths and other animals that were up there. But obviously they were taken by some sort of a natural catastrophe, probably involving water, because they're like covered with trees and all kind of muck. So it's obviously something terrible happened. So yeah, it's not surprising that most of the animals that were created at the beginning aren't here, because most of them lived at times during which there were all kinds of terrible catastrophes. So I don't think that's a very good argument. But ultimately, the problem is you guys don't have a creator. I mean, sure enough, natural selection may operate on some level, but the issue is how things got here. And your explanation that mutation did it is no more scientific, no more legitimate than the God did it explanation. We're both in the same boat.
No, there's no evidence at all for gods, though.
Tommy, if we go along with these fellers, then we have to accept that we come from rats, according to this new science article.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, Tommy, the difference is we don't make an assertion that it is anything.
I hear you.
I'm saying that we don't say he's a god.
Mouse. I really am, but I don't believe I came from Ralph.
Yeah, it's absurd.
No, you just want to feel special, I guess. Sorry, but you're just animals.
Listen. Compared to the universe, I'm not so special, but I'm definitely not a damn rat.
That's just an argument from incredulity.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question. What's so special about the universe as far as all the stuff out there? Atheists kind of like to look at us as a little speck in the middle of this grand, huge universe. But what's so special about Mars? What's so special about all these billions of suns? There are stars, rather. I mean, there's nothing special about that. What's special are the people on Earth who, have the capacity to love, have the capacity to worship the Creator, to help the old lady across the street, to help feed people. That's what's special. And so,
how does that really make a difference?
I kind of crack up at that argument about how insignificant we are, because there's no significance out there.
You are, Tommy. You are.
The significance is right here and right there in you.
Well, we're significant to ourselves, but Mars doesn't care about us, right?
Now, Tommy, we must be significant in some way, because 1 billion trillion things had to happen right in the universe in order for us to be here. That's a damn lotto win that I dig.
Well, billions of things are happening right now in the universe. It's a very large universe, isn't it? So billions and billions of things are happening right as we speak.
Exactly. So if we can be here and we can have a mind, why can't there be a mind elsewhere?
Yeah, but Brett, what you're arguing, hold on. Ultimately, what you could say you're arguing is that there is one chance in which all of this stuff would happen and 1 billion chances against it that it wouldn't. And if it's happened, then no matter how many times you could have trillions and millions of go-throughs, because only when that one is selected would the outcome actually happen. So the fact that it's happened means that all of those billion things, which were just as likely to each other as to happen, all happened, and there we are. It's a pointless argument you're making, Brett.
Do you believe that the universe itself is mathematically coherent, that we can base science on it based upon a constant? Do you think it's rational and logical?
Yes.
All right, so you state that the universe is rational and logical. Beautiful. Can we have rationality and logic without a mind?
Arguments
We
are
have our
rational,
mind.
logical.
That's not a good way to.
Maths is something that's objective. It doesn't depend on a subject for it to exist. Value of x, 1x plus a value of 1x equals 2x.
What we see is a universe that's uniform and is consistent with its nature, which we call laws.
Yeah, laws require a lawgiver. I hear you.
Yeah, Brett, if I put...
No, they don't.
No.
They are not of the same. They are not of the same status as anything like legal systems or anything of that sort. They are descriptive, and in fact, our logic and so on is descriptive as well, and doesn't actually appear to be the way the microscopic world works. It appears to be innately stochastic or probabilistic. And in those respects, you have quite some divergence from your expectations of orderliness and such. You have also a small trouble that, given the size of the universe, given the tendency of things like tornadic storms and the analogous kinds of affairs that we are. We are essentially inevitable, not unlikely.
We're inevitable, huh? How's that work?
That's interesting.
Yeah. How many suns do you expect to not be suitable for life before one finally happens? Well, there are more than enough. Far more. Look at the Drake equation. How many times do you expect to recombine all these organic polymers and so on before one succeeds? Well, given an ocean full of them, given millions of years of an ocean full of them, there's more than enough time for that to happen, and in fact, it's pretty unlikely that it wouldn't.
Going back to
the argument the wrong way around.
Going back to what Brett said, I think you guys, you're having to do some serious mental gymnastics to not acknowledge that if you're going to have laws, that you got to have a lawgiver. I mean, you don't.
That's a poor bit of logic, Tommy.
Yeah, you do.
You don't need a lawgiver to have laws. No, you're trying to take a presupposition there that is non-necessary.
I'm saying you're having to do some serious mental gymnastics.
No, you're just trying to twist our argument, insert stuff that isn't there.
You're
in
equivocating.
Order to try and make some sort of false dilemma for us. It's poor logic, mate. The type of stuff they use on Ancient Aliens, Tommy. It should be above you intellectually. Stop it. You're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'm trying. Guys, I'm trying. I understand that you've convinced yourself that you come from Ralph the Mouse, and that must be really hard on self-esteem, but I'm just trying to help you.
Now, let me explain it to you this way. The universe has limits, okay? It has limits of what can actually occur within the universe, okay? Our human minds are capable of grasping those limits, and we give those limits words, okay? And these words are what we then call laws. So for example, when two rocks in space come together, that when we study it, that becomes the law of gravity. It's simple as that.
You guys just said a moment ago that the universe is rational and logical. How can you have rationality and logic without a mind?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all.
You said that, and the other one said we're inevitable.
I don't necessarily agree with that, personally.
Brett, can I ask you something? How clean is the window on your side of the sunshine glass?
I don't know. I got a curtain in front of it. I don't feel like getting up.
Funny, I would have thought you'd have moved the curtain to give it a good old lick.
Right? Does the river being flowing through the riverbed require that God magically makes the river flow through the riverbed?
That is such
But
a dumb
I don't
argument.
think that any logical, rational person would disagree with nature being a system within itself that
Well,
is
but
actually
do
Yeah,
you
Ron
think that
Gavaga.
God guides
I mean,
the
you'd
river?
have to, like Tommy said, jump through some real rails there.
Wait, how can you
Basically,
compare?
Ron.
Hang on. How can you compare a river, basically, or a rock rolling downhill, or a river going down, water moving downstream, to the incredible, mind-blowing complexity of the human brain, of intelligence? You guys think dumb luck brought about intelligence. You think a rat brought into existence cows and humans, and that fish bred frogs into existence. I mean, it's just a bizarre thing, though, that you're equating a rock rolling downhill to the intelligence in the world, and so it's just kind of a it's a non sequitur.
Again, over millions of years with small changes, these things can occur. But I understand your point is, the law of gravity is rational. No, it's not rational. It's irrational.
Well, the other question I had is, are all these laws of physics, including the ways all these chemicals act and react, and all the laws of gravity, and all these probably trillions of laws, were all those there at the singularity? Back at the very, very beginning, right when the world or the universe exploded, was it all there?
I don't think anyone knows the answer to that question. Our mathematics and understanding breaks down at a certain point.
But don't you see how that would be kind of far-fetched to believe that all this stuff that makes sense in the universe
Hold on, Tommy.
was
Before you
condensed
start
into
this
this
argument,
tiny little dot, and it was just all like Nadi was saying. It seems like it's almost like we were inevitable, like we were playing.
no, okay, Tommy, you want to go stupid,
obvious.
that's fine.
I'm not being stupid. It seems obvious.
You are. No, Tommy, right? Think about what you're saying is, right, if we can say that we can use maths and other things to observe changes in the universe, and we can get them down to a singular point, yeah? And then beyond that point, we're not entirely sure of. We're still, with the human knowledge and everything like that, is still building, yeah? There is still a detection process going on. There's still more evidence to gather, more things to observe and understand in order for us to be able to then comprehend beyond this point. What you're doing is going, surely just beyond this point, we should insert God, because that is in some way a much better presupposition than going by, how about we understand what we can know first, and then we'll be able to understand more beyond that. Which one of those two is actually rational? Which one of those two is just thick, ignorant pig shit? I'll let you decide, but I know which one you're going to pick, and it's going to be the wrong one.
It makes much more sense that... Hang on. Let me answer, and then you can answer. I'll answer real quick. It makes much more sense that intelligence and mind-blowing complexity came from a mind than it just, blew up out of nothing for no reason. And that's the point. We're here for no reason. There was no plan, no mind. According to you guys, it's just a giant accident, kind of a roll of the dice. And we just happened to strike snake eyes.
No, Tommy, that's not what most people's idea is.
If there's no
it
mind,
really isn't, Tommy. That's what you're saying it
is.
is. But that's not what we're saying it is. You see, this is the problem. You're trying to tell us what our argument is, then actually listen to what our argument is. It's what's causing you to be dumb.
All the laws of physics either got here by mind or they got here by chance. So which is it?
Okay, I would like to...
Life isn't a dichotomy, Tommy.
No, I want you to answer
brief
the
comment.
Hang on, guys.
Chaz,
hello.
There's no such thing as chance. It's deterministic.
Yeah.
When you toss a coin in the air, we say there's 50-50 chance it'll land heads or tails, but there's no chance. There's no chance really involved at all. We say it's chance because it takes too much to calculate. The spin of it, how much force we threw it up in the air,
how much resistance it's
how
got,
much
its
resistance with the air.
weight distribution.
Hang on. If
You
there's
know,
cookies
all the
on the
different
table,
things
they
that
are
act
active
upon
Pressing
it.
a coin,
All of
it
the
has
other
nothing
different
to do
little
with
numbers that
chance.
need to go in the equation.
Yeah,
That's the
it's all
point.
Well,
deterministic.
there's one thing you're forgetting. It does take a mind to flip that coin.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
We could set up a robot
Listen.
to flip a coin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you would be a
where'd the
mind
coin
setting
come
up a roadblock to
the coin could
An
fall off
earthquake
the
could
table.
flip a coin by knocking a coin off a table.
Yeah.
An earthquake
Yeah, the
doesn't
wind-
take
the
a
wind
mind,
could-
does
the
it,
wind
you
could blow it
spasmoid?
up.
May I?
But I would like to bring this portion of the Hangout to an end. We've been kind of going down this path, and I don't think we're going to resolve it. But the way that we got here, if you'll recall, was that I posed the question, what is the most convincing argument to you from the other side? And I answered that question. I would like to hear from either Tommy or Brett, or I don't know if there are any other theists in the room. I think you guys are the only theists in the room. What are the arguments that you find the most compelling, although obviously you're not convinced, from the atheist side?
Well, just real quick, I will say, as far as an atheistic explanation for origins, which I'll just say the evolution thing, and we were talking about it earlier, I would say there are a couple examples that do, what's the word? I mean, they are...
Validate? Evidence?
Validate. Hang on. There's 2 or 3 examples that they have that evolutionists have trotted out for decades because they don't have any actual evidence of it happening. But one of them is the...
That's not true, Tommy.
One of them is the what we're just talking about, brain freeze, the disease.
Sickle cell anemia.
Sickle cell,
and
sickle cell, and the other one is the Linsky experiment, which happened a few years ago. That's probably about the best 2 that they've got, which are both circumstantial at best.
What about the nylon bacteria, Tommy? We have bacteria that eats nylon, a man-made thing.
Yeah, that's...
What, you're saying that God made a nylon bacteria which would have nothing to eat for many, many years until man invented nylon? You sure you want to say that, Tommy?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe
Oh, yeah.
did some bacteria evolve
Have you heard
to
of
eat
horizontal
nylon?
gene transfer? It has nothing to do with mutation.
Hold up, Chaz. Give him a chance to talk.
Okay, yeah. The nylon bug is no longer evidence of evolution. They've dropped that. But so I would say the 2 left standing are...
No, come on, Tommy. How would you get a bacteria which eats man-made fibers and less man-made fibers were invented?
Lateral genes transfer. I just told you. Look it up.
But so let's say that those arguments are true. That still doesn't. That still wouldn't make you an atheist necessarily. I mean, I'm asking.
Okay. So you're talking about the atheist.
Or if there's any kind of argument from the atheist side that makes you cast doubt on your actual religious beliefs.
I basically think what Brandon's trying to ask, Tommy, at any point after speaking to an atheist, have you ever had a question, a doubt, ever just sort of sat there and said to yourself...
I get one. I'll tell you about it. Sometimes when you guys say that you weren't created intelligently, and then I hear what comes out of your mouth, yeah, sometimes that causes me doubt. On intelligence, for sure.
Trust Brett to be the prick.
Oh, wait, that was supposed to be a joke. Sorry.
Hey, you wanted something. I had to figure it out.
Okay, I got one.
How late were you up last night writing that one, Brett?
Okay, I'll just say the light year things, the speed of light, that is a challenging issue for, say, a young Earth creationist. As far as atheism goes, I can't really even think of an example of something that they present. Well, think about it. Atheism is basically just a position of denial of intelligence. So they don't really present evidence for their position. It's more of just, well, we don't believe that. That's not enough evidence for us. So they don't ever present any positive evidence for their case. So it's hard to really think of something.
Tommy, can I ask you a question?
to convince me of their position.
I just want to ask you, would you ever be willing to consider that evolution happens, but that God started it that way? God created everything to evolve through chemicals. Like, we'll grant you this God for the purpose of this question. Yeah, is it not possible that evolution could have happened, but God started it?
It's theoretically
would you be
possible,
willing to
but
accept that?
if you look at reality, it's not possible. It doesn't happen. But it's theoretically possible. If you think really hard,
Right,
in
you
your
wouldn't
mind,
even go
you
to
can
that
make it, you can make it
rational
happen
level.
there. You can make it happen in your mind if you tried.
Okay, so Tommy, how old do you think is the universe?
I personally think it's a miraculous creation that was less than 10,000 years old.
Less than 10,000 years old. So if I told you there are stars we see in the night sky, which are still emitting light, and they are millions and many millions of miles away, and that light has been traveling to hit your eye for like millions of years, then how can you say it's only 10,000 years old when that light's been traveling for at least a million? Otherwise you wouldn't be able to fucking see it. So if you'll accept the speed of light stuff, then surely that has to then tickle your ballsack a little.
Okay, so I'll just
mentally speaking,
and then I'll let others talk. But yes, as I said before, it's challenging for young Earth creation. However, you don't know how fast where we started when the light from that source began traveling towards us, and we have had a situation where the space has expanded exponentially fast. So we don't know how fast light traveled in the past. We also don't know how fast the space expanded. You know, it says in the Bible, God stretched out the heavens, and so we don't know how fast that the space expanded. We don't know if light expanded within the space.
That's talking about the
Tommy,
firmament.
I think, have I broken you or something, mate? Are you all right? Do you want to have a sit down, maybe a glass of water, maybe calm your thoughts a bit?
It's interesting. For the longest time, they believed that the universe was eternal. They didn't believe there was a singularity behind it. They believed in a steadfast theory. Well, that
I
changes.
know. We can change our minds based on evidence that's observed. Can your Bible do that? No.
It's funny because you guys are so about changes, but you're not willing to accept that sometimes science changes the rules.
No, we are. Science does change. I just said science changes depending on the evidence that's observed.
Everything's provisional in science based on future evidence.
Systems change, so science must be able to change.
Okay, how many of you accept the theory of the primordial soup?
So
there's no certainty there.
Okay, but do you accept it? It's considered a theory. Do you?
It's not a theory.
So you don't see primordial soup as a theory?
It's not considered scientific theory. It's just a hypothesis.
Okay.
There are attempts at theories on it, but none of them are.
Okay. Do you agree with the information that's already provided on it?
We don't know. There are a variety of possibilities. One of them.
Well, actually, we do know. It was debunked 5 years ago. You guys aren't paying attention to your science.
No.
We say it was
It's been debunked.
No, it wasn't debunked.
No, yes, it was.
In the meantime,
primordial soup theory, which is what it was called, debunked.
Can I rattle off the backlog here? Okay, first off, the quote-unquote singularity or beginning of the universe and so on is, no, Tommy's not listening, not that big of an issue. Essentially, we have quite a number of plausible theories ranging from pocket universes to loop quantum cosmology to others. And there are very high evidential requirements. We have to be able to distinguish between them. We have to be able to, have some way to, falsify them based on kind of evidence we have, and for them to survive that falsification, not just agreeing with what we have. But we have things that explain it out there already.
Nadia, do you know what?
Excuse me. I'm trying to rattle off the backlog here. So there are actually quite a number of atheological arguments, ranging from things like if the universe was created with the appearance of age, was it is your deity therefore deceptive? To Justin Cheever's fine-tuning argument, where if such fine-tuning had to happen of these constants of nature and so on, then was a deity subject to physical laws, or did it did it merely go about the very unlikely task of
Goodness gracious.
finely tuning despite all that?
Right.
To Quentin Smith's 1996 logical impossibility of divine causation, to of course the argument for physical minds, to full-blown eliminated materialism,
I'm going to make a cup of tea.
going after the notion of mind itself.
I have no idea what that has to do with
Especially
primordial
when you
soup.
have your notion of a disembodied mind, such as your concept of deity, as you're proposing it.
Primordial soup.
And
going. Yes.
these atheological arguments are actually more typically the kinds of things proposed as evidence, or considered when one goes about
considering in a minute.
considering evidence that atheism might be the case, or rather that the non-existent deity might be the case.
Oh goodness.
So, if you are considering those, would you care to maybe choose from any of those?
I got to be honest with you. I'm thinking about slamming my head into the door over here. There's the link to the primordial soup right there that got debunked. So,
yeah, but Brett, right? Campbell makes soup, yeah? Right? And Rancan Campbell is the greatest warrior for Christ, yeah? So God likes soup, so that's primordial soup confirmed as God. There you go. Atheist 1, Christians 0.
Oh, yeah,
how'd you like me now?
The nothingness universe where you die and become non-existent and nothing more. Wow, that's a great game you won.
Or the universe where you delude yourself to not have to deal with these types of realities. That too is a valid one, I suppose, in Crazy Town.
Well, I guess you'll have to stick with believing you came from a rat, no intelligence included. I'm good with that.
Your opinion
Well, I see Christians out there, and it helps reaffirm that belief.
All right, guys. Easy. To the primordial soup issue, the fact that an experiment or even several experiments have been conducted and have not proved a positive result doesn't mean that the concept is completely debunked or falsified. It means that there could be a variety of different reasons that it didn't work. One is our concoction, the understanding of what the primordial soup consisted of was wrong. 2, it could be that we're looking in the wrong place. And 3, it could be through another mechanism that we haven't yet considered or discovered. A recent idea that has come up is that life may have begun kind of deep in the ocean around these what are they, volcanic vents,
hydrothermal
because hydrothermal. Thank you.
You're using my link that I gave you. I showed you the new thing that they're claiming now.
Right.
You can't steal my promos.
Well, but that's just a matter of fact. We understand, and science will pursue this question and keep studying and keep looking until they find something. And if they never do, well, we may never know. But to just throw up their hands, I mean, just like Edison didn't get the light bulb on the first try, he might have said, well, it's impossible. We can't contain electric light.
Ruben, can I ask you a serious question? Do you think that if you were to open up the possibilities that a mind is behind the universe, that in some way it would deter your knowledge and wonder for mystery of science? Do you think it would stop it?
Who are you asking?
You're Run, not Ruve. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, it wouldn't necessarily, but it's also not something that I can study. I can't measure a magical involvement of a being that's supernatural. I mean, if it's either it's natural and science can say something about it, or it's not. And so far, everything that we have looked and everything that we used to think was supernatural we've studied it and come to the conclusion that there are natural causes behind it. So these gaps in our understanding from a naturalistic perspective have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. Well, now, okay, abiogenesis is one place, and the singularity is another place where we still have some question marks, and there are some others as well.
Well, come on, the
But
whole thing is a question mark. You don't have the answer to the origins of anything. Life, consciousness, oxygen, space, time,
They're
matter,
question
nothing.
marks.
No, and neither do you.
One giant question
Christianity
mark.
offers a made-up idea of what it is.
One giant question mark.
Whenever we
Prove the
figure things
Bible.
out, it's
You
always a
can't prove
natural.
Bible, and you can't prove God, and I can show that.
We've never figured anything out where it's supernatural, because there's no way to testing it. Supernatural explanations are no explanations at all.
Neither is dumb luck did it.
Yeah, no, but
yeah, but every
what
time we
Patrick
figured something out,
suggested
it's
proves
always been
Saul.
natural.
You can't even produce a definition of
If we
consciousness
accept
beyond a
supernatural
bare
answer,
medical definition.
That will
You
keep us
can't
from
produce a
finding the
definition
real
of
answer.
mind beyond the same, namely the brain, actually. On both those fronts, you're totally thwarted on, and in fact, you're not doing much better on intelligence either.
Okay, let me go back to
Accepting
what
a
I was.
supernatural
Hang on. Let's
hurts
go
our
back to what I was
progress.
saying earlier. If we go back to the singularity, assuming it happened that way, and all the laws and all the matter or whatever was energy was in this little thing. How does it make it any less scientific if God put all that into motion and let it go?
But we have to prove that there's a God and that He can act on things.
I'm
That
asking
He can act on things in that way.
Dogs, you are so annoying. How is it any less scientific if God put that in motion as opposed to if it all just sort of got there on its own and it happened?
Because we can't
naturally?
prove God exists.
I know that you can't.
We can
that it
prove
did.
like gravity
You can't
exists
prove that it came
to a
together
degree,
by
and then use it in sums. We can't measure God and
You
then
can't
add
measure
Him
nature,
into
did
the
it either,
equation
when it comes to
because we
origins.
don't have a value for God because God hasn't been proven. And what
Neither
God?
has chance.
Jehovah, Thor, Odin, fucking Zeus. Which
Dumb luck has never been proven either. It's just as non.
Okay, Tommy,
What's
One
unknown
in
is
6
unknown.
chance I can roll a dice and get a 6. 1 in 6 chance I can roll a dice and get a 6.
Where'd you get the dice?
1 in 42 million.
Where'd you get your life? Where'd you get existence?
Tom, 1 in 42 million that I can win the lottery, yeah? I can win the lottery and fail to roll a 6 of the dice playing both those at the same time. So dumb luck does happen to that degree. Just because you are dumb and don't understand it doesn't make everything dumb luck.
It doesn't create complexity or intelligence.
All right.
Keep
I'll
the
tell you
unknown
what.
unknown. Don't make up stories. To
Okay,
fill gaps.
guys, you guys keep on saying it's all facts and evidence, this whole evolution thing. Fine. Can you show me a transition between the rat and the ape, please?
There's several transitions, you donut.
Just give me one, you donut.
Google transitional fossils. There's plenty of them.
Yeah,
Then just give me one name. There's supposedly billions of them. One single transition between a rat and a primate. Let's hear it.
A monkey-like thing.
I want you to be able to show me that it's actually the ancestor of humans, please.
Rodents and primates are not that closely connected. I would expect there to be a common ancestor
A rat-like creature.
fairly far
Yes,
up.
rat-like, not a
fairly
rat.
early on in the development of mammals.
Looks like a rat. Smells like a rat. Must be a rat.
Okay, looks like an ape, smells like an ape. Congratulations, you're an ape. There you are. You have just agreed with Darwinian evolution. Everybody hear that? That looks like an ape, he smells like an ape, he is definitely then an ape.
If the audience is
Thank you,
paying
Brad.
attention out there,
Thank
notice the
you.
stalling. They're not answering the question. Where is the
No,
transition
I did. I just
between
answered the
rat and
question with the
primate?
sort of logic that you stick to. I'm
Rat
sorry you don't
and
like your own logic, mate. It's not
You're
my
supposed
fault. I can't be a retard like you.
basically, he's
This
playing
is
on
giving me a
semantics
headache.
like you,
How is it
Brad.
not making
Millions
you
of
go
these
fucking...
things, but you can't produce one.
There's plenty of them. Just Google it. It's
Yeah, I mean, and
Neither is an ancestor of the other. They have a common ancestor. not a
You
transition.
You just said
between
earlier that they don't
earlier.
even have any relation
I
to
beg your
each
pardon.
other. You said they
They
don't
have.
have relation.
Yeah, they have. That's what they do
What
have.
do you
Like,
say to Neanderthal
they're both
DNA being
mammals,
within our
and they're
Neanderthal,
likely
basically?
share some closer
Can you hear me?
classification of mammal.
Is
But
this com working?
even so, the common ancestor will not be something you'll say is a transitional fossil per se.
Sorry,
They
no
didn't transition between each other.
rapid transitions. I understand. It's cool. I still dig you.
Yeah, transitional fossils are usually used to, I guess, elaborate on ancestor relationships. So, for instance, you expect a transitional fossil between, Australopithecines and Homo, not between, two broadly divergent branches of mammals.
So, to kind of back up again to a broader view of the conversation, I think it's interesting to note that we really have only touched on arguments related to deism. So I'm wondering, are there any arguments specifically related to Christianity, Tommy, that you have trouble navigating from your perspective, or that you find compelling? The arguments against Christianity.
Like the lack of evidence for the Exodus, for example.
Or the Judaic counterclaims against the messianic status of Jesus Christ.
Or there being no firmament, like Genesis 1's claims.
Or the inconsistent accounts of the resurrection.
Or that Muhammad is the true prophet.
Or the contradictions between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Or the contradictions between Matthew and Luke's nativity stories.
Why do you guys think because there are false gods that necessarily rules out the real God?
Well, because what it does is it brings a reason to doubt.
It
If
does
there will
nothing.
have a false god, how can yours not be a false god? If 99.9999999% of them are all false, apart from your one, why can't we say that about the extra one, Tommy? Because all the others think their god is the true god. So much believe it that they've laid down their lives, sacrificed others in their name, and done some pretty awful fucking shit.
You didn't answer the question.
I think I just
Because we
did,
have
mate. If
evidence
you
in your
don't get the
gospel.
fucking answer, it's because you won't listen. Because you're still holding that confirmation bias. Open your
So
fucking.
if there's a real creator of the universe, how does someone's false story negate that?
Well, like I said with the George
I don't say
Washington
it does.
example.
It brings in
Okay,
reasonable
then be
doubt.
quiet. You don't have an answer.
No, I
have
did
an
answer.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking to Chaz.
It was
No, I do have an answer. I just given it to you.
It was a dumb answer.
It was my George Washington example. There
You
could
didn't even
be,
hear it.
there could, there was a first president, but the George Washington I described wasn't it, right? So I think it's the same way with your God. There could be a creator God, but your God doesn't qualify because the stories attributed to that God have been shown to be false.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
Tommy, you see, I'm the one true God, and what you're believing is a lie sent from the deceiver.
Okay, so because some people lie, that means there's no truth.
No, it means that we have to
Well, that's
question
what you are
truths.
saying.
No, it means we
Of
have to
course you do.
question truths.
Sure.
Tommy.
Nobody said that. Nobody said that. I mean, everybody questions truth. I mean, I question truth.
Yes,
When I
because what
became a
somebody
person
claims to be
before.
true can be a lie, Tommy. Have you ever been lied to, Tommy?
But your
Have you
position
ever
is
been lied
because,
to? Yes or
because
no?
Muhammad
Have you ever
existed,
been lied to? Yes or
because
no?
Buddha existed.
Have you ever been lied to, Tommy? Has ever
Did I
somebody
ever
told
get
you a
my
lie
right-
and you've believed it? Yes or no?
What?
I was
Has
awake.
somebody lied to you and you've believed it? Yes or no? It's a simple
sure.
question.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. And have you ever lied to somebody and they've believed your lie? Like,
Sure.
when you were a child. Okay. So you can accept that people can be told lies and believe them. Yeah?
Of course.
So, right? All we're saying is that this could be a lie that you've chosen to believe. And as far as you're aware, it's the truth. As far as everybody else is aware, no, it's as big a fat stonking lie as all the other ones you call lies.
Of course, it's a
You get
possibility.
It's a good
exactly,
point.
so you can see why we'd have reason to doubt that your God claim is
I agree.
true,
There are people
when you
out there
agree
that
with
lie.
us that
There are
all the
people
others
that
aren't
Yep.
true.
Right. Right. So why should we trust a guy who thinks he evolved from a rat? You haven't answered that.
Because of we can
Monkey
show
brain.
how
Why should we trust the
multiple
monkey
changes.
brain?
Well, you're still a monkey brain.
No,
That's
no,
the
no.
point.
I'm not a monkey brain. You think you
You
are?
are. You fit all of the criterion for a primate.
Yeah. Can I ask
Sure.
you a question?
Self-important monkey in
Run
shoes,
the
Tommy.
to
That's
the
all
zoo,
you
Tommy.
are.
My mic's not working.
Go ahead,
That's
Rob.
working. I
No,
can hear
bro,
you.
we can hear you. We're just
Oh,
ignoring
I
you.
got a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
You believe in history, right?
Yes.
Okay, like the Babylonians, the Persians.
Yes, there were many, many different civilizations over the course of time, yes.
Right? Alexander the Great, Rome.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we can see evidence for these things. We can see parts of what they exist in, and we can
Right.
concur things from what we've
Okay.
observed.
Okay. You know that there are writings that are outside the Bible that speak about Jesus Christ, right?
There could be lots of writings that you
Decades
could
later.
say that. You could say the same thing about Star Wars.
There's
But we're not talking about Star Wars. Listen,
No, but you could say the same thing
Now
about
shut up
Star
for a minute.
Wars.
God,
You could say that Luke Skywalker is a
why don't you
premonition of the second coming of Christ.
Just let him talk, Chaz.
ease up on the cocaine and heroin? You know.
Mate, I don't have to do
And I know
cocaine and
this is all
heroin.
fun and games.
You kind of make other people need to do cocaine and heroin,
Prick,
but don't worry, I'm able to
Right.
rise above it.
sitting out here listening, and all you're doing is talking over. That doesn't make you win.
Well, that's what you were doing, so I just thought I'd join in.
Shut up!
When in Rome.
Chaz.
Shut up!
Yeah, that's poor
You
decorum.
don't look like a fool more than you already are.
I never
What do you
did
have
get
to
my
say
rat
about
transition to ape. Anybody?
God.
Told you, Neanderthal is.
Why do we waste our time with these pricks? Somebody explain
Well,
it.
Wrong,
there's
they
quite a
say
few
they
things
have
which would
facts
be
and
classed as
evidence.
transitional forms onto humanity.
When a person says they got facts and evidence that I came from a rat and evolved into an ape, I want to see some information. I'm excited.
It was actually a pretty good conversation before Chaz got in here.
Chaz, you believe in the Romans, right? They were the ones that crucified Jesus, right? You believe that?
Not necessarily, no.
No? Then you're an idiot. Because there's
Bible,
all
he was
kinds
put to death
of
by
evidence
Pontius Pilate.
outside the Bible that said that they did exactly that.
No, we have some information decades later.
That Jesus Christ was crucified by the Romans.
No, we have no contemporary evidence of Jesus at all. All the evidence we have was
You got the whole Bible in front of you.
Yes, that's not written at the
those are
time,
the
though.
claims, and it's
Listen to what you're saying, Floyd. The nation of Rome could conquer the whole world, but they couldn't find one crucified dead man.
oh, they crucified.
Where's the body?
They crucified hundreds and thousands of.
Where's the body, dude? They could conquer the world, but they couldn't find one body.
What body are you looking
Well,
for?
they didn't have, like, satellites at the time, did they? It wasn't like there was the
They would have looked
CIA.
for it? Come on, man, really?
Where would they find it?
Do they find everybody's body today, Raw? Do they find everybody's body today?
Deny Christ.
Every single body that goes missing, have they found
Shut up,
today?
Jazz!
You're making a lot of assumptions there. Now,
No, I'm not making any assumption other than they would have looked for the body.
Yes, doesn't mean they would have found it, though, does
Find
it?
the body, dude.
why would
So,
who
we
would look
didn't
for the
find
body?
bodies of many people.
If it makes yeah.
Just for the
Yeah,
record, I didn't boot him. Raw just left. So, I would like to address the issue of where the body might have gone. I don't know if any of you have read Bart Ehrman's most recent book, How Jesus Became God. But he contends that it was tradition for the Romans to leave the victims of crucifixion hanging on the cross to be consumed by carrion birds and wild animals, and he suggests that it's most likely that that's what happened to Jesus's body, that it was never put into a grave, and he provides several arguments for that. One is that in the oldest portions of the text in the Bible, there's no reference to a grave, and he's not talking about, like the Gospels. The Gospels came later, but talking about Paul's writings, and there are portions within the passages in Scripture that are believed to be part of creeds that come from the oldest oral traditions, and none of those oral tradition texts mention a grave. There's talk that he was resurrected, or that that Jesus was seen alive by Peter or by Mary, but the oldest texts don't make mention of a grave, and Ehrman's suggestion is that it seems likely that this just kind of became part of the tradition later on and was added to the text and things. So,
right,
and to the tradition.
Yeah, and even if we take the Book of Acts as historically accurate, which I don't at all, because there's a lot of problems with the historicity that's going on there, the Christians claim that they didn't report Jesus' resurrections until the public until 7 weeks later. Now, if that happens 7 weeks later, what would happen to a decaying body in that time, in 7 weeks, and in that environment? Well, you're gonna dig up Jesus' body and say, here's Jesus, a half fallen apart corpse. There'd be no way to know that's Jesus or not. But like Run said, either if Jesus was, if there was a historical Jesus, which I'm not granting at all, he would have been left on the cross to be pecked away by the birds or thrown into a common grave.
Do you guys realize you're doing some serious backflips to try to not believe that the Bible is written? It's just so easy. I don't understand why you're bending over backwards to try to not believe it. You're willing to believe somebody's speculation.
It's not speculation.
Wild speculation.
That's it's a historical.
Over what? Over what? The Gospels is historically true and accurate is written in the Bible.
Not in the area. They're written by non-eyewitnesses, not in areas. They contradict each other.
How do they contradict each other?
Well, you can see the stories change from Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. The stories.
No, I'm talking about.
Over time.
Wait, I'm talking about the whole issue whether there was a grave or not.
Well, again, as you point out, in the Pauline epistles, which are the earliest one, there is no mention of a grave. It talks about being raised in spirit, a spiritual resurrection.
Okay, but just because there's assuming that's true, if there's no mention of a grave, doesn't mean that there wasn't a grave.
Well, again, if there's no mention of a grave, then that doesn't coincide with the Gospels.
Okay, can I respond to Floyd real quick? Floyd, you posted a link stating that you had evidence of rats turning into primates. There's nothing but text on this entire screen. There is no images of fossils or transitions, nothing.
That's how they do it.
Oh, you want to see pictures?
Either that or it's cartoons. I do like the cartoons, but it just doesn't do science for me.
They like graphs and charts, and they like to draw cartoons. So that when it comes to actual fossils, they're completely bankrupt. So that's why they have to fill in the gaps with their drawings.
I need my rat ape, folks.
Rat ape. They're gonna probably say a weasel or something, is my guess. They'll come up with something. But
we have a common ancestor with those animals. It's not a linear thing. It didn't happen. We co-evolved with these other mammalian
So,
groups.
Brett, you're just going to have to imagine it. I mean, that's just all there is to it. You're going to have to put your thinking cap on, start daydreaming, and then it might come.
Well, I do have to credit Ron. He's got a fantastic, amazing imagination, but I'm going to need to see the evidence. Remember, science is about asking questions. Remember?
Yeah, it's about science is.
Point out that Brett or Diabolic linked a video with 50+ transitional forms there.
Is this cartoon? Are we doing CGI or animation this time? I like CGI, especially the kind that look like Shrek.
I mean, if somebody presents fossils to you, I suspect you would say, well, how do you know that's just bones? And then they present a scientist's rendition of what the animal that was, the structure from those bones, and you would say, well, now that's a drawing. I mean, if we show you the actual fossil,
Run. You do believe in the supernatural. You believe that you have the ability to read minds now. That's fantastic.
Well, I'm asking. I'm asking because the drawings that are provided are renditions of the animal that came from the fossil, or that was manifest.
That's not generally true.
Ron, I'm going to look at the CGI animations and all that, but listen, I got a comic book here of David Banner getting pissed off turning into the Green Hawk. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true, though.
Right, just like the Bible, we can see depictions of Jesus being raised from the dead,
walking
and
on
it's
water
cartoons.
and stuff like that. So
yeah.
So you accept all the so let's say if it was miraculous, you won't accept those miracles, but you accept all the miracles in the Bible. Isn't that a bias?
Well, you're calling that.
You accept all your
miracles. I skimmed through the video and I do not see my rat ape. Where's my rat ape? Give me the timestamp. I need the timestamp for my rat ape.
Where's the video of God popping the universe into existence? Where's the video of Jesus being resurrected?
You don't have any facts and evidence, I take it.
Oh,
me and Tommy, we're not
we have DNA.
We're not going to sit here and tell you that, hey, religion is based upon faith. We're not going to hold back on you on that. But you claim to have facts and evidence. You've asserted that. Now back it up.
Well, I've been pointing you to articles of transitional fossils and stuff like that. I've shown you.
You have not shown.
You've even had chats with people like Fiona and Simon Brett King. You're full of shit, Brett.
Why are you so angry?
Well, I recommend Googling those articles that talk about transitions from rats and start reading more about them.
I took your link that you gave me, one of you out there, and you haven't given me my rat ape. I'm asking for the timestamp.
Well, go back to the articles that talked about your rat ape, Google that, and do some more research on it.
You guys gave me another website that had absolutely no images, no nothing on it, of a rat ape. It wasn't even about rat apes. You're
Brett,
trying to get me to stall so you don't have to answer.
No, it's called... I mean, just... You're holding a double standard is the problem, Brett. You said that you saw a scientific article or a scientific study that indicated that we had common ancestry with rats, correct?
Yeah, you don't like science?
Okay.
No.
Yeah, okay, then you want us to do the research for that article instead of you going farther. That's the problem. I haven't seen that article.
So now you're saying that you did not ascend from rats.
I didn't know. I didn't say that at all.
What the hell's wrong with that? You were fine with coming from an ape. Why not a rat?
Well, why didn't you read that article and do more research of what you've read?
And even if it wasn't true, let's say this was just totally imaginary. That doesn't make the case that it all happened with a magic mud man.
Okay, so do we get our rat ape transition anytime soon, or are we going to keep being a comedian? Because I do like George Carlin, but I'm still not seeing the transition.
So you read an article and then you come to us to prove that article's right. Is that how you do science? Is that how you do research?
That's what science is about, asking questions, trying to learn new stuff.
Ask the people who wrote the articles. Don't come to us.
Tommy, I feel another puppet show coming on. Why do I feel that? My spidey senses are tingling.
You read a scientific article and you come to non-scientists to have it proven. Is that the right?
No, the point is you put your faith in it without any evidence.
I haven't even read the article. I'm
No,
not putting
you
faith in
put
it.
your faith in the idea that you descended from a rat or a monkey, and then a monkey, then an ape.
Evolution doesn't say that.
But you look at the Bible and you come up, you're willing to believe all these concocted what if stories.
No, we have
that
evidence.
supposedly contradict what's said in the Bible.
We have fossil records.
You believe all this
They match the different layers. We have the DNA
Yeah,
trail.
yeah,
we
yeah.
have plenty of evidence.
You say that, but then when you actually dive into the matter, there's no actual hard evidence to back you up what you're saying.
No, there actually is.
No, there's actually not.
Actually, there actually is.
You just haven't studied enough.
Oh, okay.
Have you actually taken
somebody put a monkey head in front of a human head in front of you, and you said, "That's it. That's it. The skull."
That's kind of what Brett's asking now. You say we haven't studied enough. That's what he's essentially asking. You could this whole argument could be extended to any other creature that descended from something that it's not. This is just one particular instance of rats evolving into a primate, but it could be extended to any creature. They're all missing.
What you guys are doing is equivalent to a person denying that children grow into adults because when you're shown a photo of a child, and then you're shown a photo of a teenager, and then you're shown a photo of a young adult, and then a grown adult, and you're saying, well, you don't have any transitional photos. That just shows that there are separate things. That doesn't show that there's a transition from one stage to the next.
You know how the conversation.
Show me a baby adult. Show me a baby adult.
Guys, you know how the conversation could have ended very quickly. Could have just said, "I don't have it on me right now. I'll try to get back to you later. I'm not really sure about this particular information. Maybe you can admit that you never even heard of this particular ancestor, and just went and did your research and come back when you want to. You're in no rush here."
That's why I said you.
Oh, and by the way, somebody else gives me a link. They say, "Here's your rat ape," and it's a crocoduck with Kirk Cameron on it. How about that? That's special. Are we serious scientists now? Come on.
I will say, just in case somebody brings
was meant as a joke,
that the lemur was proposed a while back, and that's been debunked too. So, just in case someone tries to present that, that's not. They don't think that was any such thing as any sort of transition, but as to what you were saying about the human and the kid, I mean, that's not the same as a proposed animal that existed between a horse and a cow that served as a common ancestor, or that there's transitions between animals that are separated. I mean, that's not the same as the example you were given a second ago.
It is the same.
Yeah, Ron, basically what you're saying is that if you have any similarities whatsoever with a butt crack, you must have evolved from it. It just doesn't work for me.
Okay. Tom, do you explain how it is the same? Okay. Here's the thing: is that we are primates. We are primates. Like apes, like monkeys, like all the rest. We are primates. Now there is proof that this is the case. Okay. Have you ever heard of the lazy gene?
What?
You know what the lazy gene is?
Well, listen, Gary, I understand you believe that, and I believe that you believe that for sure, but you haven't provided me my rat ape yet.
No. Let's get off the flat ape. I'm talking about the lazy gene. Do you know what the lazy gene is?
I don't even know what you're saying.
I do want to say, Run and Nadia, I think it's amazing that you're still here. I see a lot of rage quitting going on, but I respect the courage to stand your ground.
The lazy gene. You know what the lazy
it's my
gene
hangout.
Is? That's what it's funny.
Well, damn, that gives you definite reason to stick around. How's yes?
I'll say you're doing a good job too, Run. I'm impressed. You're doing a good job tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll hopefully be able to contribute more with less
You know what
competition.
that is? The lazy gene.
Oh, lazy gene. Oh, okay.
So the transition from rats to apes would have occurred as primitive rodents bred into separate groups, and one group persisted in the rodent family to eventually become what we have as modern rats and mice and those kinds of animals. And then another group grew into larger mammals and split off, and other mammals came out of those groups. But the transition, each step of the way, was very small. but as the populations split off and diverged, the animals became slightly different and split off into different populations. I mean, that's how it all works. So at any stage, you can have an animal that looks like its predecessor. Obviously, it's going to look like its parents. Just like when we have these transitions with languages. So at one time, people in what's now Italy and Rome, in the Roman Empire, they spoke Latin, and eventually people traveled. Their populations split off, but no parent gave birth to children who spoke French or Spanish or modern Italian. The languages slowly changed, and because there was separation and people didn't have contact with other people who were speaking the same language, subtle changes in the languages occurred, and until eventually they became distinctive languages. That's what happened in Spain and in the Iberian Peninsula with Spanish and Portuguese. They're similar. It's clear that they have a lot in common, but eventually it comes to a point where the people who speak one language can't communicate with the other. Do you understand how that?
Yeah, I hear what you're
type of
saying, Ron,
transition?
and I appreciate and respect all that. And basically, you're giving the analogy of how the biological machine known as our body has a language, a system to it that tells it what it needs to do in order to be able to exist, survive, be sentient, use its consciousness. Basically,
No, that
what
has
you
nothing to
told
do
us.
with the
If I were to ask you
analogy
right
that I
now,
gave.
if I were to ask you right now, when has language ever created itself with no mind behind it, what would you say?
It hasn't.
Exactly.
But that,
Checkmate.
that had nothing to do with his point.
It has more to do
Yeah,
with the
but it was
limits of the
beautiful.
analogy than
You
it does.
gotta admit there was poetry in motion. Relax, folks.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
after that description run, I mean, you described it, explained it well, but there's no evidence that it actually happens that way. In fact, I mean, it happens when organisms change adaptively. It's very quickly, as soon as they go into a new environment. So there's none of this garbage of millions of years or thousands of years. It's something that happens very quickly. So it's not random changes in genes that does it. Plus selection.
They aren't really random. They are, of course.
No, they're not.
Yeah, selective pressures are very much, products of the environment and so on. For instance, environmental shifts from, say, deciduous forest to, Arctic tundra. Given, say, a rapid change in climate, that will produce a, correspondingly swift evolutionary effect. Just as you believe would happen in the process of migration. Migration itself is another method by which this kind of environmental shift occurs. Populations move to different conditions, and then selective pressures differ in such a way that all that goes on. And Dawkins, I think, despite maybe his contentiousness or whatever, produces a quite excellent sort of dissent argument regarding.
No, he does not. He's
Well,
kind of
actually,
he's kind of a laughing stock.
Are you aware of the particular? He makes more than one argument, and this one has to do with sort of mind and evolution. So, in the case of artificial breeding, such as humans do with livestock and so on, well, it's pretty clear. There's an intelligence involved, and there's selective criteria imposed by the mind, and to the extent you believe there is one, and so on. Right? You understand that part?
I hear what you're saying, but you keep using words like selected and inevitable, created. It just sounds
Bear
like
with
you
me.
just want to tell us that it's all about the mind.
No. Well, I'm giving you that much ground so I can slowly pull the rug out from under it.
Good luck with that.
And if I may, this some kind of artificial selective pressure, can result from the ecological interactions. Say predator and prey, right? The predator will starve if the prey outruns it or hides or whatever, and so it has to be smart enough, fast enough, and I guess lethal enough when it attacks. And of course, the prey has to be, well, fast enough to get away and smart enough to evade and so on, right?
I don't have a clue
Those kinds of
what
mutual,
anything
those
you
kinds
said,
of
but I
mutual.
will say this, Nadia.
You
I will say
acknowledge
this.
those kinds of mutual influences exist between predators and prey, such as cheetahs and gazelles, or say wolves and rabbits.
All right, we got good news here. The rug's still under my feet, and I'm comfortable. But I do have to say, Nadia, that a little bit off topic, but I'm glad to see that you're okay. We missed you for 3 days, thought something was wrong. It's nice to see you, Nadia.
Yeah, something was wrong. Usual sort of acute renal failure and septic shock and
gosh,
so on and so forth. Yeah, purple for DNR, yellow for fall risk. Anyway, next thing is once you acknowledge that predator and prey relationship, you do, right, with say the foxes and the rabbits or whatever.
Nadia, I don't have a problem with natural selection.
Okay.
I have a problem with the premise that genetic change is chance based, that it has no direction.
Well, it's not chance based, but it is not necessarily part of the mind.
Yeah, it's still probable.
It's not directional. It does not have an end goal, and I have a problem with that.
I'm with Tommy on that as well, and I'm also having an issue with the whole species hopscotch thing. Go ahead.
Well, hold on,
Well,
Tommy.
Let's ignore that. Go ahead. Take over.
I just want to say to Tommy, it doesn't matter if you don't like it that there's no end goal in evolution. That still happens to be the reality of the situation, whether you like it or not.
You haven't provided evidence of that.
I think that's pretty clearly self-evident. I mean,
no, it's
the
not
point
clear at
about
all.
evolution is that, yeah, I mean, it's not like there's an end goal, like there's an end species in mind. Whatever species will always adapt to whatever new environmental changes occur. It's not like there's an end stage. That doesn't happen. I think it's a teleonomic process. That's what we call it. I mean, that is how evolution is. It's teleonomic.
Why, Purdon, do you think this whole premise started with the neo-Darwinists back in the 30s, and this was long before they knew anything about genes or DNA, how cells operated. This premise was that genes and genomes change by chance. And that's what the theory was back then, and up till today, pretty much is changing here in the past 5 years. But that's been the assumption. That's what they pushed the whole time as a matter of priori. It had nothing to do with science, and people like you come along, read about it in the science books, you just assume it's true, but there's no actual evidence that it happens that way. The actual evidence shows that it's all under regulation, that none of that stuff is chance-based or haphazard.
Well, no, it is probabilistic. It is. I mean, we had it back and forth quite a while ago. I think some of the chance-based mutations might be skewed in some way due to the environmental pressures around, but that doesn't necessarily mean that certain mutations aren't probabilistic to some extent.
You know what they've used for evidence of random mutation is that they can't predict it. So they'll they make this comment that they can't predict where a mutation will happen.
Hey, Ron, can I ask you a question?
Tommy.
But that's just their ignorance talking.
Tommy. That is actually the definition of randomness. Unpredictability is randomness.
Randomness is not a substitute for, ignorance is not a substitute for randomness. They don't mean the same thing. Ignorance just means ignorance, but it doesn't mean randomness.
I was going to ask ask him for permission on something because it's his room and I'm being respectful here the best I can, even though the rug's being pulled out under me. But I was wanting to know if I can put your link out to some of my rat ape friends so they can come back.
Yeah, well, I mean, the link was not to. This is actually predates the rats. This is the transition from reptiles to mammals. They're synapsids and therapsids, and I mean these are fossils that came between the dinosaurs and the mammals. And a lot of people don't even know that these exist, but they are fossils and they are transitional forms.
Yeah, like I was saying
and
earlier,
we don't.
there's going to be lots of speculation, but there's no actual hard evidence of anything.
Strictly speaking,
Can I-
not
I'd
dinosaurs,
like
but
to offer
archosaurs.
run a suggestion or something real quick. If you actually
Archosaurs, not dinosaurs.
Okay, if you
Archosaurs.
actually click
Okay.
on the link, and go into the website, you can get the short link. You don't have to have these big old Google links.
Okay.
The whole point, though, I mean, I think if you actually look at through taxonomy, that sort of is, it would be something we would think of for support of evolution, especially if you know what a synapsid is. A synapsid is any creature with just one temporal fenestra, or like a hole in its temporal bone. And the funny thing is this: all mammals have that. Every single mammal species that is known to date is a synapsid. It has only one temporal fenestra. I mean, why would that be the case? Usually, it seems like descent would be. I mean, if you just go by Occam's razor, that is probably the most reasonable explanation. It doesn't really seem like and I've brought this argument before many times. Why would any creator make mammals all the same way?
I could turn that around on you, Prudent. Why, if you think animals change by chance, mutation plus selection, why wouldn't some mammals have evolved, a slightly different form that wasn't exactly that? I mean, the whole argument can be turned around on you.
No, they would have to do that because they were forced to adapt in those environments, but a creator isn't really forced under those situations. Any creator could make mammals as not synapsids if he wanted to, but that's not what we see. That is not something that has occurred in nature.
I'm just saying I could turn the argument around, just like hair. Mammals have hair, most of them. The question is why under the evolutionary paradigm wouldn't mammals, pop out a wing or some feathers or something? I mean, if it can happen in a dinosaur, then there's no reason it shouldn't happen in a mammal. I'm just saying that same argument can be turned around on you. I see what you're saying.
But it doesn't. But you don't understand though. The wings are a way part back of an inherited past. Those wings were inherited by it. They weren't even inherited spontaneously. The wings took a while to develop, and then once they were developed over time, all their descendants really have no choice but to take on that body form.
Well, wings was a bad example, but the feathers, I'm just saying, the argument can be turned around, and all mammals, according to your plan, should not share all these traits that are the same. They some of them, since they're separated in time and space, should have evolved, completely different types of traits. That should make them distinctive.
Hold on. Why would they have to evolve those traits? You don't know all the cases of where the different mammal groups adapted in.
Well, they live in different parts of the world. They're separated by oceans and mountains and things. So it only stands to follow that some of them should have, diverged. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but to the point where they are no longer like mammals on other continents.
But Tommy, actually, these interlocks and dead ends and things are kind of points that are often abused by creationists to try to, argue some kind of, innate descent process or whatever, where, evolution as it really is articulated fully acknowledges them, fully goes on saying, that things are locked into the way that, some similarity to the ancestral bit by the interdependencies between the traits.
I'd like to follow that up real
to say
quick.
something. I got a surprise for you all. Someone suggested earlier that I lick the Windex off my window. I went to do that, and I think I seen a rock ape running around. Isn't that cool? So, hey, how you doing there,
Hey.
So,
Sonia.
if I may quickly address Tommy's issue with the mammals on different continents and things, marsupials are an example of that. That we have, we have ancient ancestors that we share in common with marsupials, but marsupials developed in a different direction than mammals on the other continents because they were exposed to different environmental pressures and things, and went along a different evolutionary path.
Okay, I'm just saying there should be. Okay, there should be lots and lots of those. But to answer the question why God would do that, I mean, to me it seems like he made animals and animal groups separate. Really, like humans, there's nothing like a human. And so, likewise, mammals seem to be in a classification all their own. Reptiles the same way. It's almost like he's leading us to the realization that there are real separations in nature that couldn't have been crossed. There's boundaries that couldn't have been crossed. So that may be one reason why he did it that way, to make it.
When there are boundaries that can't be crossed, we acknowledge them. That's why we have the recurrent laryngeal nerve and the vas deferens, wrapping around other structures, and being longer than they would otherwise have to be. And you're not making the good argument that there actually is some constraint. You're simply asserting some undemonstrated constraint. Where in evolution, the real theorists here go about examining real structures, finding real constraints, demonstrating them across the comparative anatomy of a number of creatures, and where possible, whatever kind of fossil evidence they have. I guess you can get soft tissue from 10,000 years back, and so on. Where you're simply asserting these constraints where they don't exist.
Hang on, I would like to say something about the kangaroos, though. Those were found in the Americas as well, so it's not like they evolved. I'm not sure exactly what you were saying, but they were around in the Americas and other continents. So I'm not sure your explanation holds water. That because they were separated, they evolved these totally, like the pouch and these different sorts of traits. So I think they're kind of a classification all their own, and so I'm not sure that holds water with your worldview either.
Actually, it does. We have pretty good explanation of how the migration patterns of marsupials went through like South America, Antarctica to Australia, and had a lot to do with the continents being in different positions at such a distant time in the past.
Yeah, we talked about that, but the supercontinent split up way before they would have been around.
It wasn't the supercontinent.
Well, that Pangea was split up many millions of years ago before kangaroos would have evolved.
It wasn't Pangea. It was particular land bridges.
But that's pure speculation. Land bridges. What land bridges?
They're shells there underwater that show the remnants.
Sure.
Don't you understand how it works, Tommy? You're not allowed to make assertions. But right. Nadia is allowed to make assertions.
Yeah.
So it's one rule for Nadia and another rule for you. One rule for the theist, another rule for the atheist. That's the game they like to try and play.
Assertions. Hers is science too. When they assert things in science, that's scientific. That's the science in action,
Hey, David, welcome to the room.
It's not like you're a younger creationist either, Matt. And frankly, to the best of my knowledge, I am reciting the standard account of the migration of marsupials to Australia.
I reject the biological evolution as postulated by science. With its presumption of naturalism. Evolution is a directed process a mind, a process with a mind behind it, not the mindless, undirected, random process that you're speculating about, but don't have the scientific caution to distinguish between when you're making a hypothesis and when you're making an assertion as if it's fact, thinking you can just assert things and get away with it, hoping that people are too ignorant of the subject to challenge you on it. If you make an assertion, you have a burden of proof to establish it. Your assertions don't get through just because you invoke the name of science.
Given the request for citation of an authority, I can do that. The trick is,
no. I'm not asking for a citation of an authority. I'm saying I reject your authority. Provide the evidence, not the authority, the evidence.
You tell her, Matt. You tell her.
The information is essentially privileged. So at best, we can appeal to authority, barring being practitioners of the fields ourselves.
Do you not know that an appeal to authority is only valid if your interlocutor accepts the person you're referring to as an authority?
Yes, and
so if I say I reject
at least am operating on the tentative assumption that what backs this would be accepted. Given the challenge, we could examine the authority.
That would be a wrong assumption. I've already told you I do not accept the theory of biological evolution as proposed by mainstream science. Given that I reject it, you cannot make a valid appeal to them. So you need to give us the evidence. Not the appeal to authority, but the evidence.
We understand, Matt.
So
we understand.
Do you have that evidence, Nadia?
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
The evidence, Nadia.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna have to go grab me an asprin real quick.
Just fucking go. Don't tell us a don't care.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't give a fuck about you going for an aspirin. Just go.
I do not have access to University Fossil Archives or Smithsonian or any other such as that. I can only access their online publications. And for that matter, those freely available.
And are you familiar with Christopher Hitchens?
I've reduced Matt's volume because he was not giving anyone a chance to respond. Does anyone else have anything to say? I'm about to go offline here. We've been on for a couple of hours, and I didn't want to really drag this into like a 3 or 4 hour hangout. Go ahead, Tommy.
Can I ask Matt, have your views changed, or are they the same as before? Because I thought you were an evolutionist. Is there something different now than before, or what's your stance on that?
No, my position has not changed in the slightest.
Okay, so you believe in common descent, you just don't believe in the naturalistic mechanism?
No, I don't believe in an undirected, mindless process that brought about the human species.
Okay, I don't either, but you do believe in common descent from a one-celled ancestor? Okay.
Yes, God is capable of bringing about a completely natural process from the origins of the universe to the founding of the fundamental constants to produce life on Earth that naturally evolves under his direction to produce humans.
Okay. The distinction between that and theistic evolution is minimal at best. By and large, no one rules out or even thinks they can rule out theistic evolution. Essentially by saying the proximal causes.
That's a completely false statement. Biological evolution presents evolution to us as an undirected, mindless process. I reject that. It's a directed process by an intelligence. That intelligence, of course, being God.
All right.
Well, fools repudiate.
Well, okay. Very well. I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast now. We can continue the conversation offline. Thanks for everyone who participated and for people who watched intermittently. Thanks. I think that's it. We'll continue offline. Thanks.